Hello and welcome to This Time Africa. As you know, This Time Africa is a platform that showcases our African culture, African men and women, our politicians, our emerging leaders, and much, much more. But the question always is, what's on this time? Today, our clock faces the USA, Zambia, of course, Malawi and Zimbabwe as we talk about FACELIFT on tourism in Africa. And with me to have the discussion, I have Brian Law from USA. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Thank you.
I have Matthews Mutale from Zambia. Welcome to the show, Matthew.
Thank you, Matilda.
And of course, I have to my left here Sitinga Kachipande from Malawi.
Thank you.
Welcome. It's so good to have you. And I have from Zimbabwe, Omega Tawanesvi.
Thank you.
All right, it's so great to have all of you, and I am excited. And you know, just the flavor of us coming from different countries, I think it's already very great. But I would like to start with you, Sitinga, to ask, how are you, or how is your organization involved in tourism, and why we're here today?
Well, my name is Sitinga, and I'm a PhD in tourism, in tourism studies. So I do my research on tourism in Africa, and that's why I am here today to discuss about Africa based on the trends that I've seen going on in the continent with tourism.
Oh, very good, thank you. And what would you say, Brian?
Well, my wife and I own and operate a meeting, training, and event facility in Prince George's County, Maryland. I've also worked with the Small Business Development Center on tourism projects and with the Agency for International Development in Ghana for their farmer-to-farmer program in agritourism.
All right, thank you, Omega.
So my company, Wafambo Porter Consulting, promotes Zimbabwe tourism and culture here in the U.S.
And what does that mean, if I may ask? Wafambo, I know it's a local name.
Yes, Wafambo Porter means you only grow or learn through travel. So like life is a journey, and you gain by journeying. Yes.
Oh, I see. Very great. And of course, Matthew.
Hello, my name is Matthew. I'm representing Diamond Foundation. I'm a founder of Diamond Foundation. We founded Diamond Foundation to do consulting on small medium enterprise. And we also try to distribute social justice to the communities in Zambia as well as in the US. I'm involved in this topic because of that element of small medium enterprise. And I felt that if we can discuss tourism, it can benefit either small businesses and any other who are part of the tourism industry.
Very right. You're so right. So let's talk generally about the impact on tourism on development and socioeconomic development in our countries, and why it is very important. And I can throw the question to anybody. Can start.
From my point of view, I look at tourism as to look at the industry tourism as very important part of the economy, especially in Zambia. Because I see that tourism adds 7% to GDP in Zambia. So I felt that if we can start sensitizing to let people know more about why tourism is so important, maybe we can increase that figure 7% to wherever, whether 10%, so that at least GDP for Zambia could go up.
Correct.
So we look at tourism from an employment perspective. So in Zimbabwe especially, you find that like 2 out of every 10 jobs are in the tourism industry. And this is from hospitality management, destination management, to actually the policy aspect of it. So it's an employment issue for us. It is also an economic issue, and it also has social implications.
Of course, yes.
Okay, I've worked with in rural regions of Ghana. I worked with agricultural extension agents co-op, farmer cooperatives, and also seed farmers and other vendors. My focus has been entrepreneurial. In all of those regions, most of the farmers are I can't think of what the name is, I'm sorry.
Is it the
Subsistence, thank you.
subsistence farming? Yes.
Most of the farmers are subsistence farmers, and there's very little additional activity going on in those regions. So I was tasked with trying to find out or trying to identify opportunities for economic development and entrepreneurship, and agritourism seemed like the best approach to use.
Of course, yes. Tinga, you want to add to that?
Sure. So one of the things that I look at in my research is the impact of tourism on the continent, and looking at the trends. The World Bank and IMF, they're funding a lot of tourism projects on the continent, which is great, but there are also impacts of tourism that I think that as Africans we need to, when we're doing tourism and tourism growth, we need to look at how the tourism is done so that it actually benefits the countries that are involved in tourism. Because right now, when we look at countries like in the Caribbean, they have a lot of tourism, but they're not always benefiting from the tourism dollars that are going to from tourists in their country. And so one of the things that I would want to also discuss today is look at the what's going on in the tourism industry today and see how we can have solutions that will make tourism work for us. We have to look at what we want out of tourism development.
Exactly, because one of the questions I was going to ask really is, who benefits from tourism? What's the social phenomenon? Let's look at the social phenomenon and who benefits.
So I think in most emerging countries, the beneficiaries are the actual tourists who come from somewhere else, not the locals.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example of Zimbabwe. I was reading on some statistics today, and it stated that about out of $187 that come in from tourism, about $24 stays within the local economy. The rest goes out through the providers, like the tourism agencies or other allied tourism industry participants. So you find that, there's a lot of money coming in the country, but not all of it is staying within the country. So there's inequity there, which needs to be worked on.
I think that's that imbalance that Sitinga is talking about. Like maybe what we need to do, and I'm going to let you speak, Matthews, but what do we need to do to ensure that we create and develop these infrastructures that tourists come to, and it becomes beneficial also for the indigenes of those countries? But go ahead, Matthew.
All right. I think the question you just raised, other than the one that they've discussed, I'm looking at the reason why we are looking at local tourism is because the locals in the countries, they don't even understand it because it's done by the foreigners. And most of the time, it's like foreigners have been embraced to know everything when we are spending less time to educate our local people who can contribute to the growth of tourism. Because tourism has to be, local tourism is a prerequisite of international tourism.
Correct.
So for me to excel in tourism in Zambia, I have to understand the whole the whole system of tourism, and then I extend that to foreign or international tourism. So that is the part that I would love maybe we discuss and continue moving from there, because we don't even understand, like we have festivals in Zambia. There are like 20 festivals. But you find that maybe because of the tribes that are within the country, there are so many, so maybe 4 or 5 are recognized. And those are one of those the hub of where we can get a lot of resources to contribute to tourism. For example, if I'm talking about, let's say, a Kuomboka ceremony, this is done by a specific tribe in a specific area. So if you can imagine that, how can we grow that and grow small businesses? Because when they are doing that, the small businesses are able to create costumes that should benefit the people who are participating in the traditional ceremony. And then, for example, like we are in diaspora. So if we embrace that same tradition and we are doing it here, we will be able to even import those same costumes to bring them over here.
So you're talking about actually not only raising the awareness,
Yeah.
you know, with the people in the country, for instance, Zambia, but also engaging them, and so that they can understand
Right.
how terrorism is important and how we can benefit. But Brian, you have worked with some people, I think is in Volta region in Ghana.
Yes, Volta region, the Upper East region, Upper West region, and Northern region.
And so how about like you coming from out of those countries, how do you partner? How do you work with them so that not only that you are benefiting, but they also benefit? How is the cooperation?
Okay. Now, what
And I would say, put the mic closer.
each of those four regions have a lot of things in common, including that the youth in those regions want to leave and go to the big cities because they don't want to work on the farm, because they don't feel that there are opportunities there. But if they tie in whatever the natural surroundings, it might be a ruin, it might be caves where villagers hid from slavers, it might be a wildlife preserve. But if they tie all those things in together, they can create new businesses and new opportunities and reasons for those youth to stay in the community.
So what would be some of the suggestions? What would be some of the suggestions for the youth to participate, for those farmers, those locals to be able to participate, engage, and benefit? What would be the suggestion? I think somebody mentioned that, you know, people come, and I think Omega, it was you, that a good percentage of the money goes back. What do we need to do so that it stays in and benefits some of the people?
I think the first thing that I would suggest is it's educational, because sometimes many of the locals have never been to they've never experienced tourism in their own country. They grew up.
Do they know what it is really?
Yes,
Okay.
they most likely, some don't know.
Okay.
They know there's for example, in our country, we know we have Victoria Falls. Everybody world over knows about the Victoria Falls. There are some people who've never been to Victoria Falls. But that's not just specific to Zimbabwe. It's specific to, it applies to many different countries, because even in the US, we have people who've never left the state. So there's an educational aspect that is required to educate the people that this is in your country. You need to patronize this and enjoy it. And also, I think the biggest thing that hinders people from actually going out is an economic one, because you are more concerned about bread and butter issues. What am I going to eat than, okay, are we going to go on holiday to some tourist destination? So education and the economics of it needs to be adjusted so the locals can enjoy what they have in their own area.
All right. Yes, Matthew.
Yeah, additional to what you just said, the education part is what is so critical, in the sense that because it has to start from secondary schools or from primary schools. When you put a curriculum in schools, or let's say when there's a holiday, students must be visiting these areas, to certain areas where they need, because of their geography, they were learning geography. So that must be sensitized from secondary schools, primary schools, and all education systems, so that we start looking at the mindset, because it's all about the mindset that makes people not even to visit these other areas. They don't know about it. So it's better we start from the grassroots, which is secondary schools. Yes.
All right, secondary schools. And
going off that, I'd also say that people are more likely to see the benefits of tourism if they're benefiting themselves. So it's hard to tell somebody that, oh, tourism will be good for you, but if they're not seeing the dollar value, I think it's really hard for us to say, oh, you should be motivated, this is good for you. And so I think part of it also has to do with the policies that the government makes. Like the tourism policy has to be aimed at benefiting the people who, the people of the country. So for example, like I'll use Malawi as an example. When airplanes land in other countries, they're supposed to pay some kind of airport or airport tax or fee or something. But when you have these tourists who are going to tourist enclaves, which are made directly for the tourists, they're not, the country is not seeing any of that revenue from the plane. And a lot of times they're staying in foreign-owned hotels. They're eating food. A lot of times it's imported. And so most of that money is not really reaching local people. And so I think they need to make policies that somehow get some of that money to spread around the country better, or to the bottom billion, I should say.
All right, so creating a facility so that we can also benefit as indigents. But when we come back, we're going to take a short break and talk about tourist attraction. What do we need to do to make it a tourist attraction? You're right here on This Time Africa, and we will be right back.
Africa Today presents Diaspora Business Network, Friday, March 22nd from 6 to 9 p.m. Silver Spring Civic Building. Theme, African Diaspora, Business and Media. If you're an entrepreneur or have a nonprofit organization, this is the place you organization. Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Africa Today. We are live every Sunday at 3 p.m. Our shows are 3 p.m. Sunday Guests with Elaine Pierre. 4 p.m. This Time Africa with San Natilda Banga. 5 p.m. Transformation Point with Dr. Natalie Kamsudomo. 5:30 Cyber Connect with Jean Bosco Fogham. You can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Africa Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.africtoday.com. Africa Today, the best of digital TV.
Hello and welcome back to This Time Africa, and today I'm speaking about a facelift on tourism in Africa. And of course I have here with me in the studio Matthew, Omega, Brian and Sitinga. Let's talk about how do we create a demand, because I'm looking at tourism in some countries and they are making a good deal out of it. People are always going to Jamaica. What is it that we need to do? What is it that we need to do? The governments need to do, the people in diaspora. Let's have this conversation. Anybody?
So, for most governments, especially governments that are in the developing countries, there is need to actually learn how to sell our tourist destinations, because we don't sell them as well as we should. The tourism ministries need to do a better job of selling what we have. I think that's the biggest thing. That way people who are away from the immediate area get to access, get to know about the attractions that are in different parts of the country. And that's one of the reasons why we started our tourism part of the company because we find that there are many Americans who have never been to Zimbabwe, and they just don't know about it. So we want to get word out, and we want to increase and create that demand.
Okay.
But in case of Zambia per se, I would suggest that, especially on that festival part of the tourism, where we can promote that or create a demand in the sense that if people like us who are in diaspora work together with the government, by the government creating that deliberate policy where we can do anything to contribute to the tourism. For example, if we can be doing, we can create a festival, Zambian festival season here in Zambia, where we here in the US, where everybody, wherever they are, we come together at one particular space, trying to do everything that they do back home, trying to create, we try to sensitize the people here so that they start understanding that these things happen in Zambia. So when they are learning from here, because we are already here, then it will be easier for them to interpret and find a way of going to see the actual or the original aspect of what we are doing. And that way you are creating demand.
Correct.
And I agree with Matthew about that, because I think the people of a country are one of the biggest ambassadors and biggest advertising of a country. That you can't buy that type of advertising. When people meet you, for example, Zambian, they're more likely to travel to Zambia. But I think like what's been going on with the advertising is that the president's, like, for example, Wade in Senegal, he built a big statue thinking that, oh, you know, that will also help in bring tourism, the largest statue. But that necessarily alone, building a big statue or advertising on CNN with and getting very expensive PR companies, it doesn't always lead to more people coming to your country.
Yes.
In fact, I think that those kind of projects, they can spend that money on actually investing in tourism infrastructure or facility, and or even building a hospital, because people are not going to come to your country if they know that if they break their leg hiking, they're not going to get help.
Yes.
And so I think that in tourism and policy needs to be inward looking, with like using the example or the motto, they say if you build it, they'll come. I think we should build our countries, and then tourists will come. Because if we look at the United States never had a Department of Tourism. That started, I think, about 5 years ago, but it's very recent. But we have ministries of tourism in our countries. And so we wonder, do we really need to have ministries, or can we just have tourism departments and focus on doing other things in our countries? And that will help tourism in the long run as well.
Because it's not just the historical facts that people are coming to look at, it's not just the statues, but also the environments have to be enabling, so that when tourists come, they know that, one, they are safe, just like you said, and if they are sick, they know where to go. So the environment, in fact, also has to be enabling. Of course, the policies, as you say. Yes, Brian, I know you want to jump in.
Okay, yes. Actually, in the Volta region, what we did was a series of brainstorming sessions, and we focused on locally because, to be honest, the larger organizations for the government in Ghana weren't interested in tourism in the Volta region. They were interested in tourism in the major cities like Accra. But what we did, we brought together the guest house owners and the largest farmers. We looked at ideas like having working farms where people could come. We looked at through the hospitality folks when there were a lot of people there and when there weren't. And say, for example, if there weren't a lot of people between October and November, then they could sponsor within that area a festival and market it and have the guest houses and other hospitality organizations market it. But it was coming up with ideas, looking at ruins, fixing them up, making sure that the restrooms and the infrastructure,
That's right.
as you all were mentioning, the infrastructure is important because people need to feel comfortable coming. So there are a lot of things that can be done, and I really think it should be done at the local level first. before, as opposed to waiting for the government to do something.
Exactly. And really, Matthew, what you said about having festival, like here, right here in the USA, it's so important. I know that we do have like Festac and all of that, but if we can do like a Zambian festival where people really come and see what occurs, like a replica of what happens. What do you think about that? I mean, just having festivals and bringing to us, like, I don't know what is the, apart from the Victoria Falls, what is the tourist attraction in Zimbabwe? What is it that is there? What is it that is in Malawi? Can we just go through that and so people know what it is?
Right. So I'll answer first on the festival aspect of it. So in this area, I'm not sure if you're aware, we have the Pan-African Festival, where we try to celebrate African culture, different parts from Caribbean, African, all the African diaspora. And then that has been very helpful because it has actually educated me on some things that happen in certain African countries that I've never been to. I'm like, oh, now I know what happens in Cameroon. Okay, this is what they do. And we also have in Southern Africa a Southern African Festival, Ubuntu Festival, and we hold it in the May time frame every year. So that's very helpful. It has educated people on the Africa, the continent, and the Southern African region. And as far as what else is in Zimbabwe, we have the great Zimbabwe ruins that are in Masvingo. I know that's Matthew's favorite town. So these are ruins that were built back in, like, I think the 1653 in that era, with no mortar. It's just stone, and that's what the country is named after. So there are many other things, but those are the salient ones.
All right. Okay. All right.
In Zambia, we have so many tourist attractions. We have, maybe to mention, about 18 plus. And most of these are not mentioned. The only tourist attraction they mention is Victoria Falls, because we share the same Victoria Falls. The other side is Zimbabwe, the other side is Zambia.
So cross-country tourism.
So that's the part that most people know. They will not know there are some waterfalls, which are even where I come from, the northern part. There's Chishima Falls. There's also in northern part where Dagama Short, the Secretary General, UN Secretary General, died in Zambia. That could also be a very good tourist attraction in terms of UN. People can go and watch where this guy died. Oh, that
Really? Okay.
I mean, that's tourist attraction.
Okay.
Just
No, I'm just kidding you.
yeah. So there are so many such that I think the embassies should do a little bit more of what is supposed to be like cultural centers in an embassy that should support the diaspora who are already here. So they should create that desk for a cultural center, so that it can work hand in hand with the people who are outside the government, who are outside the embassies.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for the record, the Zimbabwean side of the falls is the best.
I want to say the Sierra Leone side is the best, but since I'm moderating, I don't want to say it. Okay.
So in Malawi, we have the biggest attraction is the Lake Malawi. It's beachfront lake. It runs throughout the country. So that's what most people come to do, go to the lake, water sports, snorkeling. We also have cichlid fish. A lot of the fish are here in Atlanta and in some of the aquariums here, but they are originally from Malawi, and so people come for hiking and mainly outdoor events.
All right. And Brian, I know we're in the USA. What is one thing that people come to the US for? Let's say in the Maryland area.
MGM National Harbor. Casino.
My God, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And sometimes you're there, you don't even know that time is spent. And time is so fast spent. We just finished 30 minutes, oh my God, of talking about a facelift of tourism in Africa. And with me in the studios today, again, I have Matthew, you're from Zambia. Omega is from Zimbabwe. Brian is from the US. And of course, Itinga is from Malawi. Well, I've been your host. You know what to do. If you want to watch this program, it's coming on sometime on a Sunday at 4 p.m. That's when we air This Time Africa. And then, of course, you can go to www.facebook, africtoday.com, or go to Facebook Live. Or, of course, you can also go to Twitter, and you will also find us there. This has been an awesome time. We are coming back. We have to look at the cultural and social phenomenon of tourism. This is This Time Africa, and I'm your host, Sia Matilda Banga. I'll see you next time.